Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Rotzel, and today on the show, I have a guest. Her name is Barbara Lowder, and she is sharing her journey through, after retiring, how she learned to step out in faith and walk in obedience in this brand new chapter in her life. She's also going to share her journey through healing and forgiveness. So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Hi, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I am so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here, and it's my pleasure to join you.
It's wonderful. So for our listeners, I always like our listeners to know a little bit about how we met and everything, but you are a community member. You're a Footprints of Inspiration community member. And you know, what's so interesting to me, something that I have learned over the years is that when I feel this conviction in my heart, I am to walk in obedience and, know that it's coming from the Lord and just do it. So typically before I invite a guest on the show, I'll sit down and I'll pray about it for a period of time and, make sure that it's a good fit, that the person that I'm, inviting onto the show is a good fit. But as I was reading your email to me when you first joined the community, I was reading your email and I just became struck by this. I mean, God let me know in no uncertain terms that Tammy, Barbara needs to be on your show. This is what needs to happen. And so when I sent that email back to you, I don't think you were expecting anything like that.
No, I wasn't.
Well, that's right, because then you said, okay, wait a minute, what all does this mean? But I am really excited to have you as part of the community member or as part of the community. And I really, really appreciate you taking your time today to join us.
It's my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of jump into some fun questions and conversations. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, a little bit, as in
whatever you want to tell.
when you've been alive for 73 years, it's hard to decide which little bit to talk about. So let me tell you currently what's going on.
Absolutely.
I am in my senior year at Liberty University online.
That gives me goosebumps to do that.
Me too.
Congratulations. This is so exciting. And I apologize for interrupting you, but that gives me goosebumps. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, so do I. It's not anything I ever expected to be doing.
I'm sure.
When I graduated from high school, my father had me absolutely convinced that I could not deal with college, that I was not smart enough. And so I said, yes, Daddy, and went on with my life. And it wasn't until after I had retired that God said, no, you're not done.
Oh my
and gosh. He wanted me to share the pain and trauma that he has helped me recover from with other people, so that they can find the recovery that he offers as well. And so I am almost a Christian counselor.
That's awesome. That's incredible. That is incredible. And the fact that so how old were you then when you started college?
66.
That is incredible. That is really incredible. And here you are, 73 years old. So let me rephrase that. 73 years young.
Well, that depends on the day.
Yeah, I am sure. Holy moly. So in our conversations, I knew that, this is taking a little bit longer, to go through school and stuff. And you know what? I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, because honestly, it takes, everybody's a little different, and it takes, every one of us a little bit longer, or our own amount of time. But I didn't know anything about the trauma. So I want to, if you're comfortable with that, dive into that maybe just a little bit more after a bit. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
That's why I am here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. And like you said, you and I were talking about before we started recording for the show, is that, we are here for God and to bring him glory. And so if he is leading us somewhere, we're going to walk in obedience and follow. So absolutely. Absolutely. So here's what is just amazing to me. I hear all the time in different circles, and often in from my community members, that I'm too old to do this. I'm too, I should have, if since I didn't start this in my 20s, this is just too, you know in other words, all these limiting beliefs, all these fears of doing something after. And to be honest with you, I can tell you that when I was in my 20s, I never in a million years thought that at 53 years old that I would have my own business and ministering to people all over the world. So my point is, so many people have all these limiting beliefs. Tell me about yours going into this, and how did you work through that to say, yes, God, I am going to follow you?
Well, as I said, I never thought I was smart enough to do college and really didn't see any purpose for even trying.
Mhm.
And then I retired from home health care, and God said, well, no, you're not done yet,
Mhm.
but you need a little bit more training.
Yeah.
I came to my walk with Christ late in life. I was older than you are
Is
when
it-
I finally quit running away from him and said, yes, Lord, I can't do this by myself. And so very quickly, I was so grateful for his grace that I wanted to share it with everyone, that I'm a sinner and he saved me and
Mhm.
he can save you too. And the direction that God led me immediately was jail and prison ministry. And there I found women who were incarcerated for doing the very same things I had been doing all my life, but I never got caught.
Oh,
And so I
goodness.
found that there was a rapport immediately. When I said, I know what you mean, they believed me. They knew that I wasn't just one of those happy Christian ladies who came in to make them feel good.
Yeah.
And that opened the doors for us to exchange back and forth. And I could help them see that God forgave me and he'll forgive you as soon as you ask. And so I began there and found that that was what God wanted me to be doing.
Mhm.
And then I retired, and
Mhm.
God said, you're not done because you need to do this some more,
Yeah.
but you need that piece of paper to hang on the wall.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, I could do emails and I could scroll through Facebook and I could play games. That
Right.
was it.
Right.
And God said, oh, by the way, you're going to do this online.
And
Yeah. And he laughed.
boy, is there a learning curve to that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I agreed and said, okay, I'll do this, but I don't know how to do this. I need some help.
Yeah.
And my very sweet sister-in-law, who was a computer techie, said, don't worry, we'll do this together.
Oh.
And that made me feel like, well, maybe there was a chance.
Uh-huh.
And then the night before my first class was to begin, in the middle of the night, she went home to Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah. And I said, oh, okay, God, what
Oh.
are you trying to tell me here?
Wow.
And what he told me was, I said, God, I can't do this. He says, you're right. You can't do this.
Mhm.
I want you to learn that I can do it for you.
Amen.
And that's what I'm learning. So
Oh,
I agreed to a 2-year associate's course.
mhm.
And when I had breached the 2 years, and so by the way, I am I have an associate's degree in Christian counseling.
Congratulations.
And he said, "But Barbara, let's do this some more. We're having lots of fun."
I've got more for you, Barbara. You're not
Yeah,
done.
yeah. So I changed my degree to a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
And because, well, I told you what I could do on the computer that, well, to do college online, you have to do a lot more than that. So I trial and error, crying, pleading,
Mhm.
praying. I have that in the reverse order. Praying is always first.
Of course, of course.
I made it this far, and actually I have a 3.5 average,
Oh, Barbara.
which I think is, I'm very proud of myself. I
Yes,
may be prideful, but I'm proud of myself for that.
outstanding. Congratulations. That is incredible.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not sure, and I think each college may be just a little bit different, but isn't that cum laude?
I don't know.
And
The only laude I am looking for is God's.
yeah,
I want to hear, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." The
absolutely.
rest doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I totally agree with that. And the only reason that's on my brain is because my youngest just graduated over the weekend from
Oh, wow.
University. Yes. And we were very excited and pleasantly surprised to open up the oh gosh, the what is it called? Oh, I'm having a brain burp here.
I don't know. I don't have one of them yet.
Okay, yeah. But we opened up, it was like the booklet or the thing that they give you as you're walking into the commencement. And we opened it up to find his name and found that lo and behold, he graduated cum laude. So that's why that's on my brain.
Well,
But
congratulations to you too.
thank you.
That's, in fact, I should interject this here.
Mhm.
Where I am, God got me here, but I could not have done it without my husband.
Yeah,
He's my biggest supporter
that's
and has been from the beginning.
wow.
He often says, "I could not go in prison, but I'll pray for you the whole time you're in there." And he always does. And he's done that throughout this whole college journey as well.
Oh my gosh. And and having especially our spouses, but having those prayer warriors in our life is so incredibly important. And I often think to myself, and I have to stop myself because I think, I want to do more than pray. What more can I do from you or for you? But I have to
Yeah,
remind myself, wait a minute, prayer is huge. That is
that's right.
a huge way to come alongside people and help them through.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, I have so many things to unpack now for my listeners. I always send out an outline to my guests and we kind of go by that. I let my guests know that what, we go where God takes us. So we stick to that outline loosely. And you have just unpacked so many different things. I it's going to be extremely, I really do, because this is incredible. But I'm I am just so, and I hope this doesn't sound condescending because I do not mean it in that way, but I am so daggone proud of you for
Oh,
stepping
thank you.
outside of your comfort zone and following God, lead where he is. Number one, surrendering to him. Number two, walking in obedience to go out and do this life or, live this life that he created you for. But what's so amazing to me, and just in my devotional this morning, I was reading about, we were talking about, or it was talking about Rebecca and when Abraham brought or sent his servant and to find a wife for his son Isaac. And in the devotion, it was talking about all these things that God does. He didn't just answer the servant's prayer in that moment. He's been setting everything up prior to that moment. And I see that. I mean, and we know that, but when you really sit down and look at that, I mean, look at all the things you did in your life, even before you truly knew Christ. Look what he was doing in your life to get you prepared for this next season. And I think what's so important for our listeners to understand is it doesn't matter if you don't have the skills right now.
Nope.
That does not matter. It doesn't matter. You're never too young and you're never too old to follow God's calling, ever. So yeah, holy moly, it's just amazing to me. And I can tell you as a as a business owner, when I first started this online business, I think this first year was spent literally beating my head against the wall, learning all of the things online.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, but here's what I'd like to uncover, which isn't on in our outline, but about, you with your dad and your dad telling you the things that he told you. That, I mean, that's trauma. And like you said, to you had a lot of things to work through yourself. And I feel like, you tell me if this is correct, but I feel like you going in to work with the prison ministry, you were serving the Lord in that capacity. Was that before you knew the Lord?
No, it was
Okay.
very soon after I came to know the Lord.
Okay. All right. So
Because I could not have gone in before.
oh, that's okay.
I was convinced that if I ever went through that gate,
Mhm.
they'd see who I was and never let me out again.
Right. Okay. That's right. You did say that, and I apologize. Tell me what you mean by that.
I literally experienced and did
Mhm.
everything that the women I spoke with
Mhm.
were in prison for.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
drugs,
Mhm.
alcohol, self-abuse.
Mhm.
I had 3 kids, and though I was doing the best I could, I can say now that I was abusing those children.
Mhm. Mhm.
We survived
Yeah. Yeah.
through the grace of God,
Yeah.
only through the grace of God.
Amen.
And I came to understand very quickly that though God didn't make my abuse, I was first abused when I was younger than 4 years old.
Oh.
I was sexually abused
Mm.
before I was 4 years old. God he didn't let those things happen, but when they did happen, because it continued, as with most of the women in prison,
Mhm.
sexual abuse is part of the background.
Mhm.
And God said, I'm going to make it into something good.
Yeah. Amen.
But for him to do that, I have to swallow my pride, which I have no reason to be proudful of,
Mhm. Mhm.
and say, God did this for me.
Mhm.
He can do this for you.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah. For sure. And while you were saying all that, that's all I kept thinking was this horrific, awful time in your life, but God did not waste your pain. And
Nope.
in fact, not only, I talk in the community a lot, as you know, that our ultimate calling is to make him known and bring him glory, and talk about the glory he is bringing out of this brokenness.
Yes.
So now, how did you, like, what transpired that you started to find healing? Was there a certain event in your life where you started to, where you actually learned that, nothing you've done will ever change God's love for you? What was the event in your life, if there was one, or was it a gradual that brought you to him?
Actually, that has happened in stages.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
The first step,
mm-hmm.
I voluntarily admitted myself to a psychiatric hospital
Okay.
because I was seriously planning murder. And I said, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And I started crying and cried for hours. And my husband agreed that this was beyond our take, and he was not a believer at that point either. And so I voluntarily admitted myself to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was in treatment there for only a week, but what a week that was,
I'm sure.
the people who were working with me were obviously Christians.
Mm-hmm.
They could not use their faith in my treatment, but it was unmistakable. And when I was released, they recommended that I see a Christian counselor. And so I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to back up just a little bit in the story because this is an important part of my faith walk.
Mm-hmm.
When my husband, after dropping me off, my husband was driving back home, and he has shared this story many times, and he's in the other room listening. So I know he won't mind that I share this.
Yeah.
And I also can't say it without tearing up. He started crying and pulled over on the side of the road and cried out to God. And he says, what he said was, God, I have no right to ask anything of you. I have been running from you all my life. But if you give my wife back to me, the rest of my life is yours.
Wow. Look at God.
No, well, I'm not done. Up till that night, for the last 25 years, my husband had gotten drunk every night. He was never abusive. He wasn't mean. He just quietly drank until he fell asleep every night.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of weeks after I got home,
Mm-hmm.
he suddenly realized he hadn't had a drink. He hadn't even thought about having a drink. So while I was in the hospital getting healed, the beginning of my healing, he had accepted Christ as well. And so we began this walk in faith together. And that's such a blessing in itself that I could tell a whole podcast just about the glory of that God gave us that gift, that we could walk this walk together.
Gosh. Barbara, this is just, oh my gosh.
I know. It overwhelms me too.
Well,
And so I've had times in prison when I've shared my story, afterwards people would say, so-and-so came and asked me if that was really true, or did you make all that up? Did all of that really happen to one person?
mm-hmm.
So yes, I'm overwhelmed as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I say to those people, look at me, look what he's done for me.
Yeah. I just, to see the glory that's come from that. And that's what's so just, to me, so cool about God is it's not just this one story, but it is your husband as well coming to God in this story. It is all of these women whose lives you have touched in the prison ministry. Oh my gosh. I mean, he is so big and
Mhm.
everything has this ripple effect in his glory. And it is just, oh my gosh, what a beautiful, yes, hard, painful, unimaginable journey you've been through. And yet the glory that's come out of it
Mhm.
is
Yes.
amazing.
And I have to give credit here where it is due.
Uh-huh.
My husband's mother was a woman of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother was a woman of faith. They were both strong prayer warriors, and they never stopped praying that we would come to the Lord.
That's amazing.
I thank God, and I just don't mean that tritely. I thank God that those women got to see their prayers answered.
Oh, that is amazing. Wow. So to the person listening right now who is who is who has made some bad choices, who have made mistakes in their life, who have done things that they feel that they feel they're unlovable, that they feel there's no way God could forgive a person like them, what would you say to them right now? Hmm.
Run to the Savior's arms.
Mhm.
He's waiting for you. He loves you. And when you give in to his calling, you'll see he's always been right there.
Yeah.
When you didn't fall down and end, it's because he caught you.
Yeah.
Let me share a quote from Corrie ten Boom,
Ah,
one of my heroes.
yes. Yes. Please do.
When we are powerless to do anything, it is a great joy that we can come and step inside the ability of Jesus. I can't do anything, but he can do it all.
Yeah. So speaking of Corey Tenenbaum and all of the forgiveness that she has, talk about a forgiveness warrior for sure. What, I guess my next question that's kind of in the back of my mind, I'm sure it is in our listeners, have you ever forgiven your father?
Yes, I have.
Mhm.
And I'll probably forgive him again tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm so
I
glad.
have learned to forgive him in stages.
Mhm.
And in so doing, I'm learning to forgive myself. We are who we think our parents are. And I am learning that my father was not who I thought he was.
Mhm. Mhm.
Healing has allowed me to see a side of him that I never knew was there. And I see a side of me that I hope God is growing every day, because I like this side better.
Yeah. I totally agree. I get that completely. I think back to the things that I've done over the years and the judgments I've made. And I lift up a thank you every time. I'm, Lord, change me, because I never want to be that person again. I never want to walk around with a chip on my shoulder, because, my chip was very big. It was big in my
Yeah.
ear sitting on my shoulder. Were you able, is your dad still with you now? Is he still living?
No, he's not. He chose to stop doing this life
Mm-hmm.
23 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He committed suicide.
Oh, that is not what I thought you were going to say, Barbara. That is not at all what I thought you were going to say. I am so sorry.
Well, I am too,
Yeah.
but actually, I don't know that he and I could ever have reconciled.
Sure.
It's only now
Mhm.
that I can. We have wonderful conversations now.
Yeah.
He always says exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah. 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 So, okay, so that's interesting to me. So that was 23 years ago. So that was before, was that
Before
before
Christ.
before Christ? Okay, so this happened before Christ. So I guess, let's see, I'm trying to think of how to word my question, but I guess what I want to ask you is is to explain to the listener, because I understand what you're saying when you're saying that you're forgiving every day and that you don't know that you would have been able to reconcile. Explain that, because I feel like everybody thinks that in order to walk through forgiveness, maybe not everybody thinks this, but I feel like many of us, and I was one of those people at one time, that in order to walk through forgiveness, it has to look perfect. And once you forgive, it's done and over with. So explain that
No,
to us. Yeah, exactly.
no, it's like an onion,
Mhm. That's great.
and there's layers.
Mhm.
And you always hear that God only gives you what you can handle.
Mhm.
Well, that's not exactly right. He gives you what you and he can handle together. But I had to heal enough to be able to look at
Mhm.
the other layers one at a time.
Mhm.
And I so often hear Christ saying, "Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do."
Yeah.
And that's how I can, for every incident
Mhm.
that comes to my memory,
Mhm.
again, I have to say, forgive, Father, forgive him and forgive me, because I have to recognize my part. I mean, a lot of the things that I remember happened when I was a child, but I was an adult much longer than I was a child.
Mhm.
And so I have my own guilt in that relationship, and I have to heal that. I have to forgive myself. And actually, that's harder to do.
Yeah, agreed. Totally. I couldn't
And
agree.
so tomorrow I'll find some other memory where I get the privilege of forgiving him again.
Ah, what a beautiful way to look at it, because you know what? It is so true. It is so true. It is a privilege to walk through that. So someone is listening and they're thinking, but what was your part in this? If he was the one giving or dishing out, I don't know if that's a very nice way of saying it, but he was the one causing you this pain. Someone's listening and they're thinking, yes, but what did you do in it? Why do you have to forgive yourself? Can you explain that?
Well, I've never really thought about it in those terms. So this is right off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
But what immediately comes to mind is that I was ignorant,
Mm.
that I was so locked into myself
Mhm.
that I could not see what I know now that he was doing the best he could.
Mhm.
He loved me, though I never knew he did. I know now that he did love me, and most of the things that he did were out of love. And I should clarify this in case any of the listeners are confused. I said I was abused before the age of 4.
Mhm.
To my knowledge, that was not my father.
Mhm.
My abuser was another person in our family.
Okay. Mhm.
So I have to forgive myself because I was an adult for most of the time,
Mhm.
and I should have known better. He did the best he could. He didn't have a father himself.
Oh.
He joined the military at the age of 18. His natural father had left their family when he was like 10.
Mhm.
And so what I have come to understand is that the only father figure he ever had was his drill sergeant. And he thought that that was the way to raise children.
Right. Right.
So we had inspection every week.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we lived by that standard.
Yeah.
His drill sergeant taught him how to be a father. And they're not usually very loving people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may have worked for my brothers, but it certainly did not work for me nor for my sisters.
Yeah. What did you have to go through? I would imagine, in your counseling and stuff, there was a lot of trauma therapy as well. And I imagine you're learning about that a whole lot as well. But what did that look like for you to walk through that? And I imagine you're still probably uncovering some of those things. Like you said, every day you're choosing to
Mhm.
do that. But did you have to go through what's considered as trauma counseling?
Uh, I've been in counseling off and on since I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Um, most of the situations that I was in, we would reach in the counseling. We would reach a point where my counselor would say, Barbara, you're an intelligent woman. You understand what's going on. I can't do anything more for you.
Mhm.
And I would say, okay, I'm healed now.
Mhm.
Bye.
Yeah.
And go home walking out the door knowing that I had never brought up any of the things that were an issue.
Right. Right. So, like you said, I mean, we're talking about like an onion and you're just peeling off layer by layer for sure.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so after coming to Christ,
Mhm.
I have a new counselor,
Mm.
and his name is Jesus.
Amen. Amen.
And so I've had a lot of healing through that. And this is probably hard to understand for a lot of people, but through facilitating and leading Bible studies with the women in prison,
Yeah.
a lot of my healing happened right there alongside them.
I bet it did. I bet so, because when we go out to be a blessing to others, God God uses that for ourselves as well, and healing and breakthrough for ourselves as well. I've experienced that myself on a much uh, I don't know that there are really levels, but yes, I mean, I haven't suffered the same things that you have, but I understand that. So I would imagine that to be the case. Do you remember the first time that you really felt like the first aha moment of healing? Does that question make sense? Like, is
It makes sense. I don't know that I can give you a
yeah,
specific,
yeah.
although on a very much deeper level,
Mhm.
I am currently involved in developing and training to participate in a ministry that's an inner healing ministry through
Oh,
my church. And through the training to be able to facilitate an inner healing session,
uh-huh.
we who are participating in this get inner healing sessions.
Yeah.
And through those sessions, I have been able to goes so far into the core
Yeah.
that they're also the most recent moments of healing, but they are the most profound.
Yeah.
And I would have to lay a lot of that aha to those sessions.
Yeah.
I've been in secular counseling,
Mm-hmm.
and they worked with my head.
Mm-hmm.
The head is not where the problem was. I've worked in other counseling situations, and they worked with my personality. Well, my personality was a result of all the other things. So
Yeah.
that only went so far. But in the inner healing ministry,
Mm-hmm.
we begin by inviting Jesus to join us.
Mm-hmm.
And we open it to him
Mm-hmm.
to guide where we're to go and to walk us through
Yeah.
whatever it is that he brings to the surface at that time. And the other team members are praying
Mm-hmm.
while the facilitator, through the Spirit's leading,
Mm-hmm.
guides me or whoever we're working with to fine tune, get into.
Mm-hmm.
And what has worked for me, I can't say it will work for everyone,
Sure.
but this has worked for me to the point that I can now do this on my own.
Yeah.
Well, me and Jesus.
Of course.
But
of course.
when I have a memory come up, one of the traumas,
Mm-hmm.
I ask, where are you, Jesus? Because I know now that he was there.
Right.
I didn't know he was there then. So I look for where Jesus was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it changes the whole picture. Though I'm not formally diagnosed, I know I have PTSD.
Right. Absolutely.
And so when I have one of the flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is there now.
Yeah.
He's there now. He was there then. And so every time that I recognize that he was always there,
Yeah.
the healing is a little bit deeper. I'm open. I can even have happy memories of my father now.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
It is.
huge. That is
Yeah.
huge.
And listeners, this is not something he just did for me.
Yes.
He wants to do this for you too.
Absolutely.
Let him.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Because, you for sure let him. Because the fact of the matter is, though we don't know every listener's story, we all have a story and we all feel like I don't know if we've all been through, but most of us have been through a season in our life where it feels hopeless, where it feels like that we are doomed to live the rest of our life this way. And since it's not going well the way you're doing it, as a listener, if you're still struggling, then why not try a different way? Why not seek God and ask him in?
What can you lose?
That's right. What can you lose? It's not working your way. What is it, Dr. Phil, that says, how's that working for you? It's not working your way. So let's try this. Let's invite him in. And you said earlier, seek him for that healing. I say that all the time too. We actually have to pursue God. It is not, yes, he's with us all the time, but we have to pursue him in that. That is beautiful. So Barbara, I have a question for you. When you start counseling, and well, first of all, number one, I would imagine that in everything that you're learning through your college courses, that has also brought some healing.
Oh, yes.
I would,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. And so what is that going to be like when you are helping someone else? And actually not just, once you start doing this, you've been doing this with prison ministries, you've been doing this, I have no doubt, with friends, you're at church doing these things. How do you work through those things together, helping them through, but also, I have no doubt there have been some triggers for you. How do you work through that?
Well, it depends on how I am responding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know myself well enough now to know what my limit is at that moment.
Right. That makes sense.
And if this is something that my response is going to interfere with someone else, I will step back and say, I need someone who is not
Mm-hmm.
involved in this
Mm-hmm.
to take over.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. And I would imagine because whereas now, because you know whose you are, a child of God, I know in my own life, and I believe it with every fiber of my being, that once we understand that one simple statement that we are God's, it's not a simple concept because it envelops so many things in our life, but we can then look at our situations differently, past situations, when we know that we are a child of God. And like you said,
Absolutely.
knowing that, and now being able to see that in those moments, you can see them differently, knowing that he was right there with you. Whereas before, of course, you're not going to see that, but now you can see that. And that just helps that healing process for sure. So,
Yes, it does.
yeah. And, it's funny because I've said several times as well, that, gosh, I thought last year at this time, last year, the same day, I thought I had come so far. And then I looked to see how much I've come in this year from last year to today, and so much more. I mean, I think, and it's beautiful and it's incredible when you start living for God, understanding whose you are, just the changes and the
Yes.
healing. It's just, I mean, you just can't help but walk around with a smile on your face, right?
Oh, yeah, I can help it.
Yeah,
Ask my husband. Yeah, I can. And it's not pretty.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Barbara, I would, as we start wrapping up, again, I could sit here and talk for hours with you, and I am just so excited to meet you. And I know we're not in person, but one of these days, perhaps we can meet in person. But before we go, I know we planned on a different kind of path here, talking about fears and all of that. But clearly, now I see why it was so strong when God said, you need to talk to Barbara and have her on the show. I mean, I just, now I see how big this was. But tell me, what advice would you give someone right now that is saying, and I know you answered this to a degree before, is run to Jesus. Is there anything else you could say to someone who is struggling right now, who thinks there's no way they could ever be loved unconditionally by Jesus? What other piece of advice would you give?
That's a lie.
Yeah.
It's
Amen.
a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Satan is a master manipulator, and he knows our weaknesses, and he will feed us lies all day long.
And as C.S. Lewis says, he hasn't tried anything new. It's always the same old tricks, but we fall for them time and again.
We do. We do.
Don't listen to the lie. Turn to the truth.
Mhm.
You will always
Amen.
get the truth
Yeah.
from God.
Amen. Amen. I can't think of a better way to end the show. I really can't. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Barbara. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. This was such an incredible conversation, and I have no doubt it is going to bless. I always know that anyway, but again, feeling that strong urge from God, I know there's going to be a ripple effect that you and I won't even know about, and that's okay. We don't have to, but we know that you are blessing someone today, and I am just so grateful for that.
Well, if I could have another minute of your
Oh,
time,
you can. Absolutely.
I want to share that the irony of this just flabbergasts me, as technologically not only challenged, but inhibited, and I had such animosity. I now recognize that most likely my most effective counseling is going to happen just like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you're right. It's just amazing because what we see as, we've got this perspective that's, this big compared to God's, and we see, and I find myself doing this all the time. I put God in a box, and it's like, wait a minute, Tam, and he'll say again, Tammy, like, what are you thinking? No, I'm so much bigger than that. And what you see as helping this particular area, look what's happening over here, look what I'm doing over here. And yeah, I agree for sure. Well, friend, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
To meet you. Thank you so much for being on the show.